So welcome everyone to a conversation with Dr Kellyn Lee. My name is Emma Smith. I'm the project manager with Empowered Conversations.
My name is, as Emma just said, it's Dr Kellyn Lee. It still doesn't sound right saying doctor. I've only been one since 2019. I'm a chartered psychologist and I'm a research fellow in aging and dementia. And I'm also co-director of the Doctoral Training Centre for Dementia Care at the University of Southampton, which is funded by the Alzheimer's Society.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for agreeing to come on to today's seminar. So the story behind it was Barbara, who is one of our facilitators, had spotted the article in Guardian and sent it around to everyone and said, look at this, this is brilliant. We need to be speaking to Kellyn. And then I literally emailed you, found your emailed you, said, would you do this? You went, yeah. I said, can you send me a title, a photo and a little paragraph about what you want to talk about? Yeah, 1 minute later came back. Yeah, there you go. That was it. It was done. So that's the perfect person that we like to work with. So welcome everyone. Welcome to a conversation. I think most of you have been here before. If you haven't, it's a Zoom seminar, so you shouldn't see yourself. You should just see ourselves. At the bottom of the screen is a Q&A function. So if at any point, I'll ask you to move from chat into Q&A because it can be a bit like disruptive for us just seeing all the chats. It's really nice at the beginning though. But if you have any questions that you want to ask Kellyn, you can just drop them in the Q&A and then we will pick them up after Kellyn's presentation. So a little bit about myself and this project. So I'm the project manager for Empowered Conversations, which is an Age UK Salford project. We deliver communication courses across Greater Manchester for family carers and also professionals. We offer one-to-one support for family carers just in Salford. And in response to COVID, we have taken a lot of things and been putting them online. So webinars is one of the things that we do. We have engagement sessions from singing to a disco. We have carers groups as well, just to support people. We've been putting more out there to support people over the last year. So that's who we are. I think that's all I need to say. Kellyn, I'm going to hand over to you while I secretly drink my tea, if that's okay.
That's absolutely fine. So share screen. It's coming up with advanced sharing options, only host or all panelists. I haven't seen that before.
If you just go basic and then share computer sound, then we should work well on that one.
What do you mean, Gabe? Oh, there we go. Share sound. There we have it. Right, can you see that?
Perfect.
Right, okay, so obviously I've already introduced myself, so no need to do that again. You can see my email address at the bottom there. That will come up again at the end in case anybody wants to take it down and ask me any questions outside of the webinar, and my Twitter address is there as well. So let me start. So before I really get into the nuts and bolts of what material citizenship is, I want to just kind of paint a scenario for you. So when you woke this morning, the clothing that you planned to wear today has gone. The shower gel wasn't the smell that you like. There's no hairdryer to dry your hair, and you wanted to make a hot drink, but you have no access to a kettle. You want to phone somebody, but you haven't got your mobile phone either. And just think about how your day would start. How is your day going for you? How would you feel? And that's the life of many people that live in care homes who have dementia. So when I started my PhD, I'd worked in a care home when I was 19 years old up till I was 21. And I struggled with the care home to a degree, because what I couldn't understand is why people that lived there had to fit in with what we did, as opposed to why aren't we fitting in with what they do. So, you know, I was kind of bemused by the fact they spend all this money, they're paying all of this money, and yet they seemingly have no control over what their day looks like. It's kind of dictated by us. I also wanted to know, why is it even now when you go into some care homes, not all care homes, but some care homes, You see people sat in a room all around the outside. There's a TV in the corner. And it's like they're waiting for something to happen to them. And what we call this is passive recipients of care. So people can become quite institutionalized, and their identity is kind of chipped away because they can no longer do the things that they want to do, because this environment can actually take that away from them. So what I wanted to understand is, why is it that people are still sat waiting for things to happen to them? And I'm a psychologist, and I looked at object-person relations. And what this means is that we don't just have relationships with people, but we have relationships with objects. And what I wanted to look at was, who makes the decisions about the personal possessions that come into care homes? Because I wondered, if people had access to certain things, would they move more? Would they do more? How are functional objects used, and who are they used by? And I also wanted to look at it from a social citizenship lens. And the reason I wanted to look at it from a social citizenship lens is because this is empowering for the person who lives in the care home, rather than it being a person-centered care approach, which for me personally, I still see that as being the carer is more in control than the person receiving the care. So if we take a social citizenship lens, this is a rights-based approach. So that person has the right, okay? So although it's widely believed that care homes encourage people to bring in objects when moving into a care home, what I found was that only certain objects were actually encouraged. When I started asking questions such as, okay, so if I was moving in tomorrow, could I bring my hairdryer? Oh no, you can't bring your hairdryer. And why not? Well, because you might burn yourself, or you might leave it on, you could start a fire, you might put it in the sink, and then if the water gets in, and then it'll blow up. And there were some really elaborate reasons as to why I couldn't have it. But when I would say to somebody, has that happened then? No. Oh, right, okay. So would I be able to bring my hair straighteners? Oh no, you couldn't have those either, because you might burn yourself, or somebody else might come into your room, because residents do go into each other's rooms, particularly people with dementia, and they might come into your room and they can take them or they can burn them. So we couldn't really have that here. So actually, once you bedded down, once you dug a bit deeper, really the only things you could have were your clothes, toiletries, a piece of furniture provided it was fire retardant, and so anything electrical, providing it had been bought within a year and you had the receipt, or it had been pack tested. So even the stuff that you think is encouraged, there were still caveats attached to a lot of those. But things like soft furnishings, toiletries, some clothing, not all clothing is appropriate. There were lots of different things. So what I also found was that many people with a dementia move from hospital straight into the care home. So they may fall at home, or there may be some reason why they're admitted to hospital. And then the decision is made when they're in hospital that it's not safe for you to return home. So therefore you'll move into a care home. They don't ever get the opportunity to return home to collect their belongings. So those belongings are then dealt with by family members, which they also find quite stressful, because how do you disband, how do you get rid of all these belongings in one house, that when your mother or father is moving into one room? So also, once a person had moved into a care home, there were still no opportunities to return home to collect belongings. And when I asked care staff why that was the case, they said, well, there's a risk that they might not want to come back. So then what do we do if we're in their house and they don't want to come back to the care home? What do we do? That would be a really difficult situation to be in. So do you know what? We just won't do it. There was this sense of, you won't need that in here, because we do that for you. So, if somebody said, well, can I bring in my own curtains? Well, no, you don't need them, because we've already got curtains. You don't need your own bed, because we provide the bed. You don't need your Hoover, because we've got domestic staff that do all that for you. So in here, you don't need those things. As I say, I've already said about the pack testing and the fire regulations. And there was also this sort kind of it wasn't a myth as such, but it's something that wasn't strictly true in that current situation, but became the narrative that ran through the care home. So it was the fact that someone somewhere had done something, and because someone somewhere had done something, that meant that you can't have it. So when I look at object-person relations, it's looking at how objects can support and maintain identity. And there is this sense of we are what we have. They also help us demonstrate who we are. So they, you have lots of things that may be static, that you don't move around, but there will be so many objects you've used today, and you would only really notice if they weren't there. It would only cause you a problem if they weren't there. But we do stuff with stuff to show who we are. They can also influence how other people view us. So if I'm doing things, I then may be seen as more capable. But if I'm not doing anything, I then may be seen as incapable. Equally, if I struggle with something, that shows you the support that I need rather than, just taking it away altogether. They can help us support and maintain routines and rituals that we develop over a lifetime. So, for example, I have a coffee cup that I use and I have a tea cup that I use. I don't drink tea out of the coffee cup and I don't drink coffee out of the teacup. I have no idea where this came from and I don't really understand why I do it, but I do. And it's kind of part of who I am. They provide people with choice, control and agency. So just prior to me really sorting out my research question, I was a therapist, a psychodynamic therapist, and I had a woman come into me because she was really struggling with the fact that her mum had gone into a care home and it had changed their relationship. So one day she went into the care home and she said, generally, I always feel worse for going and visiting mum. I generally feel worse for it. But today it was a good day. So I said, why was it good? And she said, well, because I took a flask in and mum seemed to really like this flask. So I said, what was it about the flask that she liked? She said, I've no idea. Well, is it something that she used in the past? No. And I said, well, would you buy your mum a flask to have in the care home? She said, well, what would be the point? She'd forget to drink the tea. And I said, well, perhaps it's less about drinking the tea, but more about the choice, control and agency that this object represents. So when you come into the care home and you had that flask of tea, she didn't have to wait for staff to come and ask if you wanted a cup of tea. She could be the host. She was your mum. She hosted you before she moved into the care home. So she had the choice whether to have tea or not. She had control over whether she poured the tea and she could decide when. Also, objects do provide us with control and comfort and familiarity. And there's lots of research that shows that. But I was really interested more in, rather than the comfort and familiarity, the way we can have agency, the way we can, do things with things. So what is material citizenship? My definition is the right to be included in decision making relating to personal possessions and the right to have opportunities to use functional objects to perform everyday tasks. And when I talk about functional objects, I mean any inanimate item which a person can use to perform a task, not necessarily to completion or to any perceived standard which maintains or supports the cultivation of his or her identities. So when I talk about not necessarily to completion or any perceived standard, I think that's really important, particularly in dementia care, because just because somebody doesn't complete a task doesn't mean they shouldn't start one. And equally, just because somebody may not do something as well as they used to, that doesn't mean they should be, prevented from doing it at all. So these are the kinds of things that I'm talking about when I talk about functional objects. They're the everyday stuff that we don't talk about because it's all really quite boring. So if somebody asked me about who am I and what do I do, I'd probably give them some nice elaborate stories so people think that I'm really interesting and stuff. But actually, all these objects are part of my life, but I wouldn't tell you about those because, what would be the point? So when people move into a care home and people are asking them questions about their occupation, about their family, they're collecting this idea of who the person is. But what they're not understanding is how that person lives their everyday life and what they do. I'm going to now show you a video, which is a 4.5-minute video, which is pretty much my PhD in that 4.5 minutes. So rather than me talking at you for ages, I shall do that now. Hello and welcome to this video, Material Citizenship, Functional Objects for Meaningful Lives. In this 4-minute video we will talk about the importance of functional objects in everyday life and care planning for people living in care homes. Functional objects are any items used to perform a task to maintain routines. This could be anything from cooking utensils, cleaning equipment, or technology such as a mobile phone keeping people connected. These are objects that demonstrate identity and encourage activity. People living with dementia often move into a care home following a hospital admission or a crisis at home. The person with the dementia may not be involved in the decision to move. They are often moved without returning home and don't have the opportunity to select the items they want to have. Moving into a care home can be difficult, but retaining familiar items can make this transition easier. Access to functional objects support the person to maintain routines developed over a lifetime and give them the opportunity to live the lives they want to live. Functional objects are often overlooked when a person moves into a care home. The focus is often on items of necessity or comfort, such as toiletries, clothing, photographs or soft furnishings. And whilst these are important, we also use many other objects every day. Think about each item you have used today and how your day would have been if you didn't have these. Sometimes care staff can be overcautious with residents, taking items away. This can leave people feeling frustrated or agitated. Whilst this comes from a place of safety, ultimately staff can either encourage or prevent activity. If one person has an issue with an item, this does not mean the same issue applies to all people living in a care home. Without functional objects, residents can be left with nothing to do. This can have negative consequences and interrupt their usual routines. It is important for people to use functional objects to lead meaningful lives. Without functional objects, people can behave in ways care staff find challenging, such as continually walking, repeating questions, and distressed at not being enabled to take part in everyday life. Not having functional objects can reduce a person's independence, resulting in them becoming overly dependent on care home staff. If a person has a set routine, say making dinner at the same time every evening, breaking this routine can cause agitation and restlessness. Supporting residents to care for themselves maintains their identity and makes them feel more at home. Prior to moving into a care home, we can ask people about what objects they want with them. For example, we could find out what tasks they did at home, the objects they used for this, and would they like these objects to continue these tasks. This helps build a picture of how someone lived their everyday life and allows staff to have a deeper relationship with residents. Identifying the objects a person wants to have and how they use them can be included in care plans. Using functional objects can provide people with opportunities to participate in everyday life, doing things for themselves and helping others, resulting in living a meaningful and fulfilled life. So, functional objects are important to support people live the lives they want to live, enable people to demonstrate their identity, and reduce the disruption to a person's life. Thank you for watching. We hope you found this video useful. Okay, so hopefully that gives you an idea of fully what material citizenship is. The video is also on my YouTube channel and is freely available for anybody to use however and whenever they like. So what does material citizenship do? It places objects as a key player in shared decision making. And I believe that it actually really personalises care because you get to know how that person wants to live their everyday life and kind of the stuff that means something to them rather than just sitting around and waiting for things to happen. It can enhance psychological well-being. If you see people that are sat, just in a room, nothing to do, that has a negative impact. Depression and loneliness and isolation is huge in care homes. And I wonder whether actually if we enhance people's lives in relation to, them doing bits and pieces during the day, the things that they want to do, whether that could change. It supports residents to live the lives that they want to live. This is a rights-based approach to care. And for me, this is about, it's not saying, no, you can't have something. It's about saying, actually, yes, you can, unless we have evidence to show, or unless we have a really good reason as to why that's not possible. And even then, let's look at some kind of compromise. And it also supports care staff to do the job that they want to do. I came across many care staff who didn't have permission to give personalised care. That it was very much task orientated. It was, you've got this amount of work to do and you need to get all this finished before you finish your shift. Sitting and chatting and actually being with people who isn't seen as care, that's actually seen as somebody not doing their job, or they could be doing something else. So the whole kind of, I think the view of care needs to change. It needs to shift. So the project that I've just finished is Material Citizenship project, and it was an impact project. So rather than just being another research project, I took the conceptual framework, which I developed in the PhD, and I wanted to put it within a care home organisation and say, right, okay, this is the idea that I've got. Let's see if this works. I think it will, but I'm not sure unless we actually test it, and equally see how it works for different care homes, because they're not all the same. So I worked with an organisation called Brendan Care. The funding was, the project was funded by the ESRC and the Alzheimer's Society. And what we did is we developed, designed and implemented a skills enhancement programme for care home staff. It was a 12-month project, and it was, as I say, a collaboration with a care organisation, Brendan Care. So what did we achieve? We developed and designed the Material Citizenship Skills Enhancement Programme. So that's live, we've got that now. It was really difficult because we started the project in February last year, and then of course COVID hit and care homes closed their doors to visitors as of March. So we kind of sat on it for a little while and thought, shall we pause the study? What shall we do? And I thought, well, actually, I think if they are open to carry on, then I think we should. So I redesigned it as an online training program. Originally it was going to be face-to-face, but obviously that wasn't going to be possible. So I redesigned it to a 3.5-hour active learning online program. This was then followed up with interviews, which were conducted remotely over Teams with all care staff, which was looking at really, what did they think of material citizenship? How did they find the online facilitated training? And equally, were they able to implement it? Because that would tell me a lot about the environment and a lot about any barriers that were there. And also, I think we see lots and lots of training courses that staff go on to training courses, but you don't always see the knowledge being implemented in practice. So the results from the interviews were all really positive, but I will also note that these staff were cherry-picked. They were staff that would be receptive. So this could be an overly positive view. The next lot that we're doing this year, the next lot of training, we're going to have a real different mix of care homes and staff, because I don't want this overly positive view. We need to have both. So I just want to say that before, before I go into the quotes. But the staff that attended, they enjoyed the programme. They all wanted more. They felt, and the thing that was unexpected, which I absolutely loved, was that the staff felt valued. They noticed that the work they were doing was incredible. They noticed that what they thought was just, I just do it. Actually, no, that is the personalised care. That is the stuff that makes the difference. And they need to notice that they're doing that. And this seemed to bring that out. So some of the quotes were, I really enjoyed it and I knew everyone else did. When I heard material citizenship and it was 3 hours long, I thought, ugh, but time flew. If that's important to me in my home, imagine what it must be like for them. And Sophie said this might be a bit of a weird one, but this lady who she hadn't considered before, but she might want to shave under her arms and her legs and bits and pieces. So Sophie got her some feet and helped her with this. And she said it's a small thing, but she really didn't like the hair under her arms. And obviously, bless her, she couldn't do anything about it. And she also didn't want to say. So I asked her and she said, yeah, I've never had hair under there before. And this kind of shows how you know, objects can make that difference, and noticing that they make that difference. So, for example, with this lady, if you know, people were helping her to get changed and she didn't want to lift her arm up because there was hair under there which she wasn't used to, that could be then viewed as challenging behavior. It could be viewed as she's being difficult, you know, we can't get her dressed, she won't allow us to. And actually it could have just been the embarrassment of having hair under her arms when she never had. So we have the project finished in January. We received another 12 months funding from the Applied Research Collaboration Wessex, which is the NIHR, National Institute for Health Research. The idea is to roll it out to more care homes within Brendan Care, but also another organisation, and that's going to be Hallmark Care Homes. I've just booked in with them that they're going to receive their training in 2 of their homes between May and June. We were going to do a trial with Dementia UK, the Admiral nurses. That's not going to be with all Admiral nurses. It will only be with some I think it's in the southwest. And also we want to apply for further funding to conduct a realist evaluation, because what I'm really keen on understanding is what works for who and in what circumstances. We all know that care homes differ. We all know that you can have 10 care homes that all owned by the same organisation, but they all run slightly differently. So by putting in material citizenship, what I'm hoping for is that, 1, it improves the lives of people that live in care homes, and also 2, that we can understand what it is that's going on within those care homes, and that we invest in the staff that are actually working in them. And that's my presentation. Thank you. I'm going to stop the share, shall I?
Yeah, that would be good.
There we go.
That was absolutely brilliant. I've written pages and pages and pages. And then also, while you're doing that, I've got like various animals who just
I did see.
I want to see.
There were animals, there were kids. I was like, oh, concentrate.
It was all going on. It was all going on. Barry's at the door now. Gertie wants to go out. Oh my Lord. Sorry. But it didn't distract me at all. And it just feels like, you know, it's really good that you've said your next steps, because when you hear something this good, you think, okay, but how does this get bigger? How does this get out to every care home? How does it, you know, how is this just mainstream, so that as someone's moving into a care home, they're not even thinking of, it's not an extra thing, it's just an obvious thing that they're going to go, right, okay, so what's important to you? You know, what, right, your duster, whatever it is, your mug, your hoover, whatever those items are that are important to you, in that sort of getting to know a person, you know, it's just in there. Yeah, really.
And it's developing those relationships by looking at what people do and how they live their life, and understanding them a little bit more. And like I say, a lot of it's the boring stuff that we do. We do loads of stuff that's really uninteresting, so we're not necessarily going to talk about that, but it makes our day flow. It's what we do. And I hate housework, but every now and again I clean my house from top to bottom, and the sense of achievement I have from that, you know, but I'm not necessarily, I have told you all now, but you know, it's not something that I'm going to talk about to everybody. But the other thing that I didn't actually mention in this is I've also set up a social enterprise, because in relation to research, as many of you may or may not know, we are largely governed by funders. So if somebody thinks it's a good idea or not will depend on whether it continues. And I really didn't want to be in that position. So, you know, for example, I've got the funding, which is only part-time for the next 12 months. So I thought, right, okay, so I've set up a social enterprise. So that is actually running now. So if people want to access material citizenship, they can actually buy it. And what we're going to do with the money that we make is, 1, ensure that obviously it's sustainable, so that we can still keep developing the training and also delivering the training. But the other love that I have as a psychologist is I'm into acceptance commitment therapy, or acceptance commitment training, however you want to look at it. And I'm developing a program for informal carers to look at how they emotionally manage, how they feel in relation to dementia care. Because one of my things that we've got so much research that shows that they are not supported as well as they could be. And that's kind of an area that I'd like to plug as well. So That's what the plan is.
That made me think I know I've got colleagues on who'll be going, make sure that we carry on having chats with Kellyn about this, because there's definitely things that we can be working on together. Just tell us a little bit about acceptance commitment therapy or training. What is it?
So acceptance commitment therapy has got a scientific base. It derives from the association of scientific contextual behaviour. So that all sounds really, they're all very long words, aren't they? What it basically means is it's a values based. So sometimes we can kind of disconnect from who we are. So for example, if you have somebody who has been diagnosed with dementia, one, they have the struggles that they have in relation to an acceptance in the fact that they have dementia, and also what does life look like, and a lot of things being out of control. Equally, so does their partner. So what the program will do is it will look at understanding that there are things that you can't control. However, your reactions to things, what would you prefer to do? Would you prefer to react or to respond? And we have a whole toolkit of ways of being able to kind of be present and feel. So what we tend to do is we think way too much. We overthink everything. We worry about what other people might think. They might not think I'm a good carer, or they might not like what I'm doing, or but actually what we need to do is we need to get rid of a lot of that thinking and actually feel, what am I feeling? A lot of the time we feel pain. If somebody has dementia, they will feel pain. And so will the carer, what the life that they potentially wanted that may not be there. There is so much complexity there. But actually with ACT, what they talk about a lot is you have to live with pain, because in order to live a fulfilled life, you have to have both. Everyone follows this happiness trap. We all have to be happy. Oh, positive, happy, happy, happy. It doesn't really work. But what we need to do is we need to sit with that pain, and we need to acknowledge that pain and that it hurts. And once we embrace it, it can actually stop restricting us. We can let it go, and we can perhaps think more mindfully. And that's kind of the whole program in relation to ACT. It's about looking at how a person is reacting to that diagnosis, how a person is reacting to that person, and actually whether it meets their values. And if it doesn't, that's where the conflict can come in. And then you can have potentially two people that are living an unhappy life when it could be better than it is. It's this sense of showing up more in the way that you want to, the person that you want to be.
Have you come across Damien Murphy, the Getting Along program?
I haven't, no.
So I'll do an introduction for you after this, but I think so Damien's been he's been on, actually done a presentation last year, but his project is all about sort of when you get a diagnosis, bringing the couple together and having sessions together, just to give everyone maybe 4 sessions, but give people that time to think about that diagnosis and what does it mean and how do we feel. So that would...
I worked with a couple who he'd had a diagnosis, and he wouldn't allow her to tell anybody that he had dementia. She couldn't tell her daughters. She was really struggling. He was getting quite angry with her, and we had 4 sessions together. And she said, when I met you, it was dark. She said, and now there's light at the end of the tunnel. And just that meant the world to me. And that meets my values as a person. And also he then enabled her, he'd said to her, you can tell the kids, and the family could then come together and support each other. But up until then, absolutely not. And it's that thing that everyone experiences it in different ways. The relationships that people have are all different. And I know that the Alzheimer's Society used to run a CRISP course, which was all about dementia, but the people that I did a research project on that as well, and the people that were part of that, some of them absolutely embraced it and wanted all that knowledge. Other people, it just sent them into a downward spiral, because it was too much for them. So it's also enabling people to get that support when they need it, rather than when we think they need it.
Wow, we're definitely going to stalk you for the rest of your life, because
oh good, I've never had a stalker.
Oh, you're getting lots of absolutely brilliant, they say do not use the word suffering, laugh out loud. Jeff has said thank you, that was really interesting. We're not had any questions yet. They're all being very good and very quiet and not putting any questions in, so I'm going to put it out to you all now to start your questions, because we've listened a lot about the work of Kellyn, and there's so much in there that I'm sure that you'd want to know a little bit more about. So please ask. And Kellyn, in our first session of the communication course, like the first exercise we get people to do is we say, how do you feel when you're having a conversation with somebody with dementia? So straight away we're getting into those emotions. So it's not and then we go, well, how do you think the person with dementia might feel when they're having a conversation with you? So really sort of getting straight into emotions and thinking about what might be going on, and then that curiosity about how the person with dementia might be feeling.
And it's I've come across a lot of work in the past that you know, looking at the stigma of dementia, and I know obviously Tom Kitwood you know, pioneered so much work in relation to see the person first, but I still think that people struggle to do that. Once that diagnosis comes in, people can tend to focus on, okay, so what we can't do, what is no longer there, and kind of overly protects the person, and it, you know, it changes the relationship dynamics totally. And I guess it's just trying to sort of go, right, okay, let's take a step back. You know, the person is still there, so you know, yes, things are going to be different, and yes, and this is where the ACT stuff comes in relation to, there are things that you cannot control. These things are going to happen, and it is quite possibly going to be painful. But the more you try and push it away, the more painful it'll become. It's like if you've got a ball and you try and push the ball underwater and it keeps popping back up. And you have to think of that as your emotions, because the more you suppress them, the heavier they get and the more they will push back up. And generally that's your reactions, typically, to the person.
That's a really good analogy. Thank you for that. Margaret said, have you written anything on acceptance commitment? Not yet, no.
No, that if you go, because I haven't actually done a project on it yet, so I'm not privileged enough to write something on it yet, but if you go on to ACT, there is, you know, just put ACT or put acceptance commitment therapy. It is a really, really generous community. They don't hold anything to themselves. They will give you loads of stuff. There's a thing called the choice point, which I work with all of the time, and it really it's a tool that anybody can use. It's better to be guided by somebody who knows what they're doing, but you can pick it up. Loads of stuff out there. There's a book called The Happiness Trap, which is written by a guy called Russ Harris, who is amazing. For me, that it was a game changer, even just in relation to everyday anxieties, imposter syndromes, all the sorts of things that I have. So that kind of stuff, it really helps, but also it really gets you to think about, what am I feeling and why am I feeling it? And actually, is what I'm thinking true? Or have I just made up this story that I'm living to? So loads of stuff out there. Have a look.
Thank you. Masood's asked about, I think he's asked about the animation. So Masood, what I'll do is I'll put a link to the animation in the email that you get tomorrow, just as a follow-on from this seminar. So I'll just make a note to do that.
If you can stick it, yeah, the link for the YouTube channel, if that's okay, and then I can feel really popular.
Oh, I'll send it to your channel. No, what I'll do is I'll copy your film and I'll put it in our YouTube channel.
Yes, you're more popular than me.
We can never be more popular. So it's not the disease, but the thought of having a condition with no cure is the confidence killer. Yeah.
And again, in relation to material citizenship and with ACT, I think the material citizenship is that your confidence can be stripped away because people can try and prevent you from doing things, or can treat you differently, like, you know, you're less capable because now you have this diagnosis. So you know, whereas those objects can help you demonstrate, well, actually, look, I am still a capable person. I do still have value. Thank you very much. And with the acceptance commitment therapy, it's embracing those feelings, that feeling of, you know, sometimes despair and hurt, and why has this happened to me? Rather than trying to push those away or trying to reason them, it's just kind of feeling them and sitting with them. And equally, if you think of it sort of like a balloon, you can just have that thought and just let it go. And that doesn't mean that it won't come back, but you can just let it go, and it can be quite a cathartic experience.
Thank you for that. Hello, Gertie. Sorry, move the animals away so I can see. So any more questions? We've got another 15 minutes. If you any more questions that you want to send our way, please send our way. Debbie has said, thank you. That's been really interesting to listen to. That's lovely. Thanks, Debbie. Good afternoon, Debbie, and thank you for your comment.
I wonder if anybody on here can see any barriers or any problems with actually having material citizenship in a care home. I wonder what people's thoughts are, whether they, yeah, just throwing it out there.
I was thinking, as we are supporting carers, we see that sort of how they want to protect the person with dementia, and they and you know, whether that's in a conversation, which is generally what we would be talking about, so that someone might finish another person's sentence, and offer some sort of scaffolding to the conversation, or whether it's, you know, oh no, he can't make a cup of tea, not anymore, it's not safe, or he puts too many sugar, you know, like, yeah, you know, you could still dry the dishes, and you might put them in the wrong place, but then, you know, you could always move them over, you know, sort of identifying what can still be done rather than he can't. It's almost when someone gets a diagnosis of dementia in people's head, they're like straight in a care home, sitting in a chair, can't do anything, and they forget about the person and what their interests are. Oh, there we go. Got some questions now. Oh, Masuda said, my dementia is locked up in the bedroom.
Okay, so why is that?
Okay, Barbara said, the attitude of the care homes and carers, they always look for safety, but what is life if all you are is safe? Yeah.
And that's what I found massively. So care homes are in a difficult position. They're regulated, and rightly so, because we don't want people to be in places in which they can come to harm. But they are so frightened of being blamed for something, or that something's going to go wrong and they will lose their jobs over it, or equally, I haven't met any member of care staff who doesn't have a real affection for the people. They come first, the residents for them come first. They're like family. But they're so frightened that they're going to do something wrong, or that they're going to be, you know, I don't know, like I say, lose their job or something, that they work in a certain way. And equally, if that organisation is risk averse, it restricts them from being able to do anything. What I've also found is in relation to risk is that sometimes family members say, I don't want my mum doing that, or I don't want my dad doing that. So even if care staff are confident to take those risks, sometimes relatives aren't comfortable with that, or they have the sense of, you know, why is my mum doing the hoovering? We pay X amount of pound for her to be in here. Why should she be doing that? You've got staff that should be doing that. You know, why isn't she getting paid to do that then? Why have we not got, you know, some money off of her bill? But I'm just in the middle of creating another video for relatives on material citizenship. So what we're hoping is that the conversations can be much more open. And if you see your mum doing the hoovering, it's because this is actually part of her care plan, because this is what gives her a meaningful life. And everybody understands that, rather than what's my mum doing, you know?
I like that someone be going, I need a £5 off my mum's hoovering. I want at least £5 off a day. Masood's come back. He said, I don't let it take over my life. I control it. So this was Masood had said he keeps his dementia in the bedroom.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we have ample comments coming through now. So Rachel has said, how can we change the culture? Yeah, in the care homes.
It's really tricky, and that's what I'm hoping material citizenship will do. I do think that we will see a change in relation to the COVID pandemic. Quite what those changes are going to look like, I don't know. And unfortunately, I still don't have much faith in the current government to actually really deal with the enormity of it. The government for the last 15 years have been kind of ignoring the fact that social care needs some attention. So how quick that will be, I don't know. But in the meantime, all we can do as researchers particularly is keep plugging away. And as I say, with material citizenship, I spoke to a person who's head of memory care for a big global organization, and he said, what you've done with this, he said, when I first saw his brother showed him the article, and then he looked at the video, and he said, I thought, well, we do that, you know, we're a big organization, we do that. He said, and then I realized that actually we don't. And he said, what you've done is you've given it a name, and because you've given it a name, we can now do something about it. And another person from another care organisation, she said, this is what we've been looking for, because I think that there is so much good care going on, but what they need is permission to really be able to empower the people that they care for. And I don't think they've got that yet. But all we can do is keep plugging away and hope that we can get there. It certainly won't be a quick process, unfortunately.
I wrote down the CQC in this because it feels like, I think the CQC do a very good job, but I think they've also driven that sort of tick box mentality where we're not changing culture, we're not changing attitudes. It's like, tick, 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 yep, done that. And this is not tick box stuff, is it?
They have just released, I think, a new way of working. And it does look to be much more experience of care orientated, which I think is a great move. I just need to see how it actually pans out, because I agree, I think there does tend to be a bit of a tick box exercise, and equally the people that are carrying out the inspections all have kind of different orientations. So you may get somebody going to one care home who was really hot on dementia, and then you may get someone else who's really hot on infection control. So you could get two different reports coming out of the same home because of the orientation of the person that's actually doing the inspection. I did speak to the dementia lead at the CQC a couple of years ago, and she said this is what outstanding care looks like. And part of me was absolutely chuffed to bits, and the other part of me was actually really quite gutted, because I thought this is the least we should expect. This actually should be what everybody gets. And that, I think that's my thing in relation to care homes. Regardless of how much money you've got and where you come from, you should be able to all receive that basic level of care. And that's what I would like material citizenship to do.
Got 8 minutes and the questions have come in a lot faster now. Rebecca said, I just worry that it'd be so difficult with care homes being so understaffed. I think it'd be brilliant to introduce, but can imagine it depends on the managers.
It definitely depends on the manager. So what I have specified with material citizenship is that the manager has to take part in the training with staff, because otherwise there is no point. I've also created a senior leadership workshop so that the senior leadership team can engage in material citizenship. If you want this in your organisation, you need to support the staff to do it. Otherwise it's a total waste of time. In relation to how you embed it, I think the other part is documenting it, so that not only does that show CQC or other auditors exactly the kind of care that's happening in this place, rather than it just being something that you do, it can also promote good care, because other people will see that somebody enabled somebody to do that. So I think it could be quite contagious. But I think it does depend on what the organisation, how interested the organisation are, or is this just another course for them to tick a box? And unfortunately, that is something that I don't have as much control over as I would like to. But if we can encourage senior leadership teams and managers to actually get involved, then I think we stand a better chance. But yeah, I'm also conscious that I don't want staff to do something they feel uncomfortable doing, hence having the manager there who's supporting it. In relation to would it increase a workload, I think initially it may well do, because you've got to find out all this stuff and see how it works. But I actually think in the longer term, if you've got more people doing things for themselves, then you can reproportion that resource and spend more time with the people that need a higher level of care, rather than having this mentality that everybody should have the same care.
Margaret said the difficulty of one person having something in a shared room which could cause conflict. So Betty's got the Hetty Hoover. She brought it in from home. She's hoovering the communal area. And Dave, he likes hoovering as well. He wants the Hoover. So is that gonna, I just put names in just for
definitely
to animate it more. Yeah. So what happens between Dave and Betty and the Hoover?
And I guess this is where care home staff have to be creative in relation to understanding who does what and where. So you've got that situation. I mean, they have that already. So, for example, care staff said, the thing is, you'd have one person who wants the TV on, but the other person says, I don't want that on, it's too noisy. Or someone else says that's too quiet. Or I want the window open, but oh no, I don't want the window open because I don't want to feel the draft. So you get that stuff goes on anyway. Yes, that there is the possibility that equally somebody might take somebody's Hoover and it's their Hoover and he's just taken my Hoover. You know, it's same as with chairs. If you have your own chair in a communal setting and somebody sits in your chair. But I do feel that there are ways around it. I think people, even if they haven't got their own chair, they still find a chair that's theirs, you know? So I think it is just about enabling people the right to these things and seeing how it kind of rolls out and then dealing with the difficulties as they arise. That's the only thing I can think.
Jeff said, as soon as the chair thing, I was thinking, have you ever walked into a pub and sat in a chair, like a local pub, and you've sat in a chair, and then someone comes back and they're like glaring at you because that's their chair?
Yeah.
Jeff said, material citizenship is a brilliant idea. It makes you wonder why it isn't already being used right now. It sounds like the most natural thing. And it is asked, will there be links or any information to the helpful website? Yes, so we'll include all of that in the email tomorrow, Jeff, so you'll get all of that. And Bev has said, I push this philosophy as an occupational therapist and dementia service lead in the NHS, but it's a constant push to change the culture of care and staff thinking. Oh.
It's funny, I've had lots of occupational therapists seem to like material citizenship. I've had a lot of positive feedback from them because I guess because we're thinking along the same lines.
So it's constant push. Really great presentation, thank you. Melissa said, I'm interested in how care homes can be supported to become integrated into communities and not isolating places for people to simply be in their later years. Yeah, definitely, Melissa.
And this is what I find in some ways, sort of dementia friendly communities, I find quite frustrating at times because I don't see many care homes involved in dementia friendly communities. And, you know, even sort of if people want to go visit their own GP, you know, no GPs come in, hairdressers come in. Well, actually, I want the experience of going out into the community, sitting in a hairdresser's, having a cup of coffee in a really nice cup and talking to people or them talking to me about stuff that nobody else talks to me about, you know, having that whole experience. I really don't understand why care homes tend to be this closed community. I think it's historically this idea of when they were asylums, people would be shut away and you know, we know that they're being looked after, so we don't need to worry about them. I don't think that has totally been lost. I think that still exists, and that is the undercurrent underneath why care homes aren't open to their communities. That's my belief. It's the same reason why people with dementia are still on the top floor.
So they can't get out. That's why, isn't it? To make it difficult for them to get out.
And also when the visitors come in, you know, it's a pleasant experience is the idea, because they won't be bothered by people that potentially have dementia or inappropriate behaviour. So it's all seen as this kind of negative thing. So if we keep people upstairs, then we can keep it up there and everything looks lovely downstairs. It's terrible.
It is really bad. And it is, and I just wonder how the care sector generally will recover after pandemic, because I read yesterday about HC1 are losing a load of their care homes, and they're a big provider in the UK, and you know that can only be replicated by the other care homes who haven't, you know, because of the pandemic they've not had people going in, so they've less income, people have died sadly, so they've lost income that way. So it's just going to be really interesting to see the recovery, and if it does recover, can it be in a way where actually all of these issues have been challenged and overcome, and it is an environment that's open to the community. It's an environment where if I want a slice of toast at 6 o'clock in the morning, I can get a slice of toast at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I can go to the toilet whenever I want to go to the toilet, you know, all of those things. And I can have my own mug, and actually I am going to have a teacup and a coffee cup there so that, you know, and I want, you know, all of that. It'd be amazing to see. Right, we're in our last minute, so thank you so much, Kellyn. That was massively interesting. You've given me loads to think about, and I'm sure from all these comments you've given everybody else a lot to think about. Feels like this is the start of our conversation.
I hope so.
Yeah, it'd be great to carry on chatting. So thank you. Rachel said amazing. Thank you.
Thank you
For your time. Thank you everyone for joining us today. We've got some more webinars coming up. I haven't got the details yet, but I will send those out to you as soon as I have them. So yes, take care everybody. Enjoy the nice weather, enjoy the daffodils, and I'll see you soon. Thank you, Kellyn.
Bye.